Hi, good evening. Welcome to the video lectures from Shivanand Sharma Memorial RV College. This is an ISR initiative. Shivanand Sharma Memorial RV College is one of the premier institutions run by the prestigious RV group of institutions. We have come up with a unique initiative to engage students at the time of this unforeseen medical emergency caused by the corona outbreak. As a socially responsible institution, we would like to connect academically with students to make good the losses caused. In this connection, I, Gokul C from the Department of BBA, has posted a video on the subject income tax and the topic income from other sources. Please watch the video till the end, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also share this video with your peer groups. Thank you so much. So, topic of discussion is income from other sources, the theoretical part of it. The charging section is section 54. The charging section is section 54. We have discussed the other four heads of income, that is income from salary, income from house property, profits and gain from business and profession, capital gains, and the fifth heading is income from other sources. Now, this section is called the residual head. This income from other sources is called a residual head. Why? The reason is any income which doesn't form part of any of the four head becomes part of this income from other sources. If it is not a salary, if it is not a house income from house property, if it is not your business income or professional gain, if it is not a capital gain, then invariably it becomes your income from other sources. That is what your section 56 subsection 1 says. That is, it covers income which does not fall under any other head of income. What does subsection 2 of section 56 say? It says it specifies 9 incomes which are always taxable under the head income from other sources. It says there are 9 incomes which are part of income from other sources. So today we'll be talking about those 9 incomes. Let us try to find out what are those. The following 9 heads of income are always taxable under the head income from other sources. What are those? First one, dividend from a foreign company or dividend of cooperative societies. We have learned earlier also in our business income also, dividend from an Indian company is exempt. Now we will talk about that as a tail ender, but as of now, please understand that dividend from a foreign company or dividend from a cooperative society gets charged under the head income from other sources. Second is winning from lotteries, crossword puzzles, races, including horse races, card games, other games of any sort, or from gambling or betting or from any other nature whatsoever. Now, what does it say? Winning from lotteries. It doesn't say income from lotteries. Have you wondered why? Winning from lotteries, crossword puzzles, races, including horse races, games, and other games of any sort, or from gambling or betting or any other form of nature whatsoever. Now, there is a very clear definition as to why it is called winning from lotteries and not income from lotteries. Now, it is just like your capital gains, how we discussed, it is called transfer of capital asset. We don't call it sale of capital asset. Why? Because transfer has a much bigger meaning than sale. Now, winning from lotteries, let us take a very simple day-to-day example. You buy a lottery ticket worth 10 rupees and luck favors you and that lottery ticket earns you 100 rupees. Okay. Now, having said that, how much is your income? Income is nothing but your how much was your income ideally? How much did you spend on the ticket? 10 rupees. How much did you gain? 100 rupees. So 100 minus 10, 90 rupees is your income. So that means technically, if the income tax is income from lotteries, I should be paying tax only for that 90 rupees and not the entire 100 rupees. But here, income tax is very smart on that. They say winning from lotteries. That means to say, how much did I win? How much did I spend? 10 rupees. How much did I win? 100 rupees. So I need to be taxed on 100 rupees and not that 10 rupees. That means to say, any winning that you have, the income tax is not worried how much you spent on buying that particular ticket. So having said that, it is the entire winning that matters. Let us take one more extended example. You bought 20 lottery tickets of 10 rupees each. Okay, so you spent how much? 10 into 20, 200 rupees you spent. Now 19 lottery tickets you could not win. The 20th one gave you 100 rupees. The 20th one gave you, you were lucky enough to get the 20th ticket that gave you a prize of, that gave you a prize, PRIZE, of 100 rupees. Now, ideally, how much did you spend in buying the tickets? 200 rupees. How much did you win? 100 rupees. That means to say you have spent more than what you have won. Technically, you have incurred a loss of 100 rupees, but income tax is not bothered about whether you bought one ticket or 20 tickets. Income tax always asks you, how much did you win? If you say 100 rupees, you have to pay tax on those 100 rupees. And same goes in the case of crossword puzzles, TV shows, quizzes, your Kaun Banega Crorepati, whatever. So it is on that you have to pay the taxes on the winning amount and not any other income. Okay, so I hope I made this concept clear for you. That is the reason it's given as winning from lotteries. Third one, sum received from employees as contribution to any staff welfare, if not deposited before due date of such act. Now let us take an example here. If it's a business income, then it is fine. But here, let us say there is a person uh, who runs a coaching center. That is not his main business. He could do it otherwise. He and it is not considered as a business. Let us say his income is from other sources. It is put under other sources. He has a couple of employees who are working there, and every month he pays salary, and he has a and there is a PF contribution also which is involved. That is employee contribution and employer contribution. Now, having said that, if if the employer does not provide his part of the PF contribution before the 15th of next month, ideally the rule is before the 15th of next month, the employee and the employer's contribution should have been contributed to the PF office. If it doesn't happen, then whatever the income, the sum that is received from the employees, that becomes part of his income from other sources. So very rare case. Having said that, I'm just telling you that how it can be charged. Fourth one, interest on debentures, government securities, bonds, if it is not treated as business income under section 28. So please remember our business income, when we did it, we repeatedly talked about section 28. Interest on debentures. You have invested on debentures, you're getting interest on that. You have government securities, you have bonds, you're getting interest on that. That becomes part of income from other sources. Please remember, any interest that you receive is an income from other source unless it is stated specifically as a business income. I repeat, any income that you receive forms part of your others, should be considered as income from other sources unless specifically they have mentioned that it is a business income. Fifth one, rental income from machinery, plant or furniture let on hire. Very interesting point. You have a plant, you have a machinery, you don't have a business per se. That is not your business, but you have it. And once in a while, you just give it to somebody on hire. So the income that you receive from that should be called income from other sources. I repeat, it is not a business income. You do not have a business per se, but you have some furniture, some plant, some machinery, etc., etc. Your main business is not letting it out. If that is the case, then it becomes part of your business income. But you do it once in a while. Whenever it is free, it's available, you just give it to somebody, you get a small amount as rent, as rent for that. That becomes part of your income from other sources. Sixth one, rental income of letting out plant, machinery, furniture, along with letting out a building, and the two lettings are not separable. Do not get confused with this long sentence. Rental income of letting out a plant, machinery, or furniture, along with letting out of building, and the two letting are not separable. What does it say? For example, you have a building. In that building, you have some plant and machinery, you have some furniture, you have other things which you cannot separate from that particular building. Okay. Now, having said that, you can, and the person who is using it also needs those plant and machinery, he needs those furnitures, he needs it for his own usage or whatever. Now having said that, the rent that you collect is including the other things. For example, other anything other than building, it is not just for the building, including plant and machinery and furniture, you are collecting that rent. That rent is called composite rent. When we discussed house property, we talked about composite rent. Composite rent is nothing but the rent which you have collected for not just the building but all the other amenities which are part of that particular thing, which cannot be separated from that. Now having said that, if it is not if you're not able to separate it, then whatever the rent that you get, the rental income of letting out your plant machinery, etc., etc., then such an income is called as income from other sources. They're called income from other sources. Okay, so don't get boggled down by that sentence which is given there. It just says that if it is together, you're getting the rent, you're not able to separate it as to how much is a house property and how much is the others, then you can consider it as income from other sources. Seventh one, any sum received under a Keyman insurance policy, including bonus, if the same is not taxed as salary income or business income. Now, when we spoke about business income, we spoke about something called Keyman insurance policy. What is Keyman insurance policy? Understand the term key man. Key man means somebody who's very important. Somebody who's important. For example, in a organization, there is somebody who's who's talented, who's extremely talented. Without him, and he has so much of brand, so much of reputation in the organization that without him the company cannot survive. He's an indispensable part of the organization. Okay, in such a case the company doesn't want to lose such a person. What they do, they take an insurance in the name of that particular person, and every month they keep paying the premium for that particular insurance policy. Okay, and uh, one more thing what I have to tell is, whatever the premium that they keep paying, whatever the premium that they keep paying, the business takes it as a admissible expenditure. They show it as scheme and insurance policy. The premium that they pay for it, they show it as a business expenditure, and they take benefit for it. Now, having said that, once the premium is paid and once the policy matures and the entire sum is given back, there are three ways in which it is treated. One, if the entire sum is given to the keyman himself, if the entire insurance policy money, including the bonus part, is given to the insurance, given to the keyman himself, then it is treated as the keyman's income from salary. Why? Because there's an employee-employer relationship between the keyman and the employer who gave that benefit of insurance to him. Now, if the employer himself collects that insurance policy, then it becomes the business income of the employer. If the employer himself collects that policy, the sum total of the policy to himself, it becomes a business income for that particular business. Third situation is death of the keyman. Now, for some reason, the keyman dies, and whatever the insurance policy is given to his family, the sum amount is given to his SUM, the sum amount is given to his family members. Then, whatever the income that they receive, the family members receive, becomes part of income from other sources for them. So three situations I have told you. If the keyman himself receives it, it is considered as salary. If the business receives it, it is considered as business income. If if on death of a on account of death of the keyman, if the family members receive it, it is called income from other sources. Eighth one, money or property received without consideration or for inadequate consideration. Now, this is a big topic to be discussed because here the concept of gift comes. And gift is something which we cannot just talk over the next 5 minutes because it's a very elaborate topic. But as far as your syllabus is concerned, it doesn't require you to know so much. Please understand that if you just give away your property or money to somebody without anything in return, you just give it away as a gift, then it is considered as your income from other sources. You are supposed to pay taxes on that. Now, let us stop at this. The reason is I don't want to give some statements which would be misleading here. As of now, please understand that anything which you give should have a business transaction. Otherwise, it's a gift. So any gift also becomes part of your income from other sources. Deliberately, I'm stopping here. Then let us discuss about it at a later stage if required. Okay. The ninth one is interest received on compensation or on enhanced compensation. Interest received on compensation. What is compensation? In capital gains, we saw that when we had transfer of capital asset, we spoke about something called compulsory acquisition of a property under any law. Let us take that simple example: compensation, a compulsory acquisition of property under any law. You had a property somewhere, the government approaches you and says that we are going to acquire your property because there is a metro construction which is happening, so you need to give it to us and we will pay you the compensation for it. Now you got the compensation. Now you got the compensation. Say for example, this whole incident happened in the assessment year 15-16. You got the compensation in 18-19. So 3 years have passed. After 3 years, you got only the principal amount. You are not happy with it. You go back, you go to the court and say that, look, 3 years back, whatever they had promised me, they have given me now. That too only the principal amount. I want the interest portion for it. Whatever this 3 years, they need to pay me the interest on that particular compensation. Now, if you win the case, then whatever the interest portion the government pays you, that becomes part of your other sources. The compensation per se becomes part of your capital gain. The interest that you get on the compensation becomes part of your income from other sources. Now there's something that is one example. Second example, you got the compensation, you're not happy with it. You go to the court and you say that the compensation that you have received is very less. I want an enhanced compensation. You fight for it, you get an enhanced compensation. So whatever that enhanced compensation that you got, that becomes part of your capital. Again, what happens? You got the enhanced compensation. You are not happy with it again. You go first, case one, you say that the compensation is less. You go to the court, you get an enhanced compensation. You are not happy with the enhanced compensation because you say they're giving me only the enhanced compensation, they're not giving me the interest portion on the enhanced compensation. In such a case, the enhanced compensation becomes part of your capital gain, but the interest that you get on the enhanced compensation becomes part of your income from other sources. Okay, please listen to this once again, whatever cases I have told you, so that it becomes part of, so that it sinks to your this one. So these are the nine heads of income that we spoke: 1, 2, 3, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. There's only a tail end to it, what I told you. Dividend income which are exempt up to rupees 10 lakh. What are those? First one, equity or preference dividend of a domestic company. Domestic company is nothing but your Indian company. So that means to say, listen to me very carefully, the dividend that you receive, if you receive dividend up to 10 lakh from any Indian company, it is exempt. So it is exempt. It is tax free. So that means to say any equity or preference dividend of domestic company up to 10 lakh rupees is exempt. Second is dividend of UTI. What is UTI? UTI is a Unit Trust of India, which is the first company to introduce mutual funds. So any dividend that you receive becomes your tax-free income up to 10 lakh rupees. And the third, dividend of equity-oriented mutual funds. That also becomes anything up to 10 lakh rupees if you receive in any of these, that becomes part of your that doesn't form part of your income from other sources. They are all exempt. But if it exceeds beyond 10 lakhs, for example, if it is 12 lakhs, so you will be charged for that 2 lakh rupees, as the 2 lakh rupees will be charged as your income from other sources. So let us just go back and see that the charging section in section 54, we spoke about, sorry, it is 56. Just made it as 54. I'm so sorry. The charging section is section 56. We have spoken about it. So we have spoken about, let me just, yeah. So we have spoken about what are those nine heads of income under 56, section 2. These nine incomes, if you understand these, this tail end of dividend income exempt up to 10 lakhs, I think we have covered everything by and large. So thank you so much for listening, and do share your views and opinions. Thank you so much.